discussions I would like to have: seed oils versus sugar or carbohydrates with Dr. Robert Lufkin.
You mentioned seed oils too, and I certainly believe seed oils are something else I avoid in my personal diet and what I recommend. What do you think the relative contribution is? If you could do one thing, low carb versus no seed oils, what would you recommend?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think of all. I mean, I try to minimize your damage, right? I think that I think when I look at like one of the things you touched on too is what's the effect of stress on all this with high cortisol levels and high stress hormones and being on edge, the sympathetic overdrive all the time. How much is that? Especially as doctors, we're notorious for that. Trying to save the world or being burned out and not enjoying what you're doing anymore. Being able, because we feel guilty if we sit and look at the ocean for a couple hours or something like that, and really try to calm that body down. So I think stress is a huge factor, but I think, yeah, I don't know how much I hear great discussions on both sides about seed oils and carb. And I think it really depends if you're metabolically healthy, you can eat a lot more carbs than someone else can. If you're metabolically sick, it changes the story. So if you're a weightlifter and that's where Tro and Lane Norton get into arguments because it's like he's seeing the healthiest of the healthy and they're fit, healthy guys with a bunch of muscle mass. Yeah, they can get away with Oreo cookies. You know what I mean? It's not ideal, but they can. But if you're a 400-pound diabetic and your A1C is 13, okay, you shouldn't be eating Oreo cookies ever, right? Until you get your metabolic health. Then you could, that will be something maybe you can look forward to. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a huge, I think our enemies are inflammation. I think both of those contribute heavily and the problem is most of them come together. You have the processed seed oils and the sugar together and the fat together. And you go, okay, you're a sitting duck.
Yeah.
From episode 20, how seed oils promote cancer.
Do you have a sense of like which one of those levers? Well, yeah, of course you have a sense of one of those levers. Do you have a sense of the proportion between those levers, which would be more productive for health, right? Like removing seed oils and like lowering the amount of refined sugar that someone has in their diet. It's not 50-50.
No.
One is kind of causal and the other one's more of like reactive in many ways.
I don't think sugar's all that important in the context of a otherwise healthy diet, which I think, there are papers out there that look at fructose, which is, table sugar is sucrose. It's a glucose and a fructose bound together 50-50. There are papers out there looking at fructose and fatty liver disease, and they measure the damage that's being caused by the increase in HNE in the body. Wait a minute, what? So,
and do they mention linoleic?
No, usually not.
Usually not. No.
So fructose and alcohol both seem to have the effect of increasing the oxidative damage to polyunsaturated fats. So if and I mean with alcohol, this is super clear because we have alcoholic liver disease. And if you replace polyunsaturated fats with saturated fats, in the animal models, they can feed rats up to like 30% of their diet is ethanol and they're fine. Don't try this at home, folks. Right? So and I mean, I found a paper the other day and they're measuring the harm from ethanol on the liver of rats by the production of HNE. Okay. So that said, sugar rots your face, right? It's a clear independent cause of tooth decay. Yeah. I went on a low sugar diet when I was like 18 or 19 because my dentist told me that if I didn't want to keep coming back to him to get cavities drilled out, I could just stop eating sugar. So I did, and he was right. And it was great. I was so happy not to see a dentist for 20 years. Literally, I didn't go see a dentist for 20 years. And then, my now ex-wife made me go see a dentist. And I was a little alarmed at what he was going to find. And what he found was no cavities. So that's pretty cool. Um, but does sugar cause, there are populations like the Hadza or, other African tribes who eat colossal amounts of honey and they don't have diabetes, they don't have heart disease, they don't have cancer like we do, but they do have tooth decay, right?
That's a fair point.
So, yeah, I think it's still a good idea to avoid refined sugar. When I fixed my diet, one of the most surprising things I learned was that I could probably eat more sugar than I had been for the prior couple of decades. And I do. And you know what? It's nice to have ice cream or, put some maple syrup in my full fat yogurt when I have it.
I mean,
Still
I would
have no
say,
cavities. I'm
yeah,
keeping it low enough. And when people ask me how much sugar is too much, if you're getting cavities, that's too much.
yeah. I think I definitely had a experience 2 weeks ago is when I started this. So where having been effectively pretty aggressively some version of keto, carnivore, paleo for a long time, 8 years, let's say,
Yep.
I was like, I'm gonna get fat, but like 2 weeks, let's do it, let's see what happens. And was surprised that that is like not how that works. Like
Sorry,
if you
explain that.
sorry, so I basically thought if I looked at a carbohydrate, I was just gonna immediately become obese. And all of my kind of experiences when I have eaten that stuff and swayed have come with inflammation and some weight gain. And then under I would say under like tacit supervision of a PhD macrobiologist, I'm like trying this experiment where I eat during the day, like almost just honey, maple syrup, and see what we can do. I am brushing my teeth several times a day,
Okay.
but I'm not. I haven't gained any weight, and I think part of that for me is that over the 2 years, over the 2 year journey, I've like detoxified, or I've done some reduction of like linoleic acid in my body and definitely in my diet, right? Like if you put those two things together, probably like a high carbohydrate diet and like high linoleic acid foods, you're gonna get yourself in a pretty bad position. But having removed one of them, it's been like very peaceful eating a pound of honey every day, thinking that I would literally turn me into like a huge morbidly obese person almost instantly. It's been very, very interesting to be like, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't the sugar that was the issue when I went keto. Maybe it was the soybean oil and the salad dressings and in the dip that comes with the pizza and in the fake cheese
Right.
and like in all of the other stuff that you're eating at that point in time.
Dirty keto, as
Yeah.
Josh Durham calls it. Yeah, I mean, there's a obesity researcher called Serwit, and he came up with a couple of different diets to study obesity, and one of his control diets was almost pure sucrose, right? So if you feed animals a ton of sugar, almost a pure sugar diet, they don't get fat. And that's, and I mean, there's definitely a sweet spot in the middle. Um, and I don't entirely understand what's causing that, where, the blend of linoleic acid and other fats and glucose and sucrose seems to be the most fattening combination. And then when you go off kind of in either direction with either towards the all carbohydrate level or the all fat level, it becomes less fattening. And that in that area, the what's called the carbohydrate insulin model seems to be what's driving it, right? You've got a lot of fat around and high levels of insulin, and that affects that what I call what I started calling the fat curve as I'm trying to figure this out. It seems to go away when you lower the seed oil consumption, right? So seed oil drives hyperinsulinemia. Maybe that's what's doing it in that fat curve where you're getting calories on both sides and you're stimulating the endocannabinoid system to make you eat more. It seems to go away though when if you go on a really high seed oil diet, that fat curve, that obesity curve kind of levels off your liver fails, but you know, you can't have everything.
Yeah, your genes mutate, but
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, went down a rabbit hole there, but yeah, appreciate your insight.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't worry. There were, like the Japanese ate 84% of their calories from carbohydrates right after the Second World War. And when they started adopting the American diet, they started getting what they call the Western cancers. They started having a cancer profile that looked more like America. And part of that change in their diet was we convinced them to stop eating any fats other than seed oils. And, their weight started going up, and their cancer's death rate started going up. But their carbohydrate consumption went down and their sucrose consumption stayed pretty flat. So I'm not concerned about that. I think there are good reasons to eat a low carbohydrate diet, but I just feel better on it and I like my teeth. But
I definitely feel much better on it, and I can't wait to go back.
so really, you're noticing just a negative effect on how
Well, not negative, but like when I tried to stop eating honey around 2, and then wasn't eating till dinner, and by dinner time I'm like absolutely starving, and in a much lower carbohydrate environment I could just like not eat for 3 days.